Well, we are delighted to have Madelaine Czufin from the Vinetta project join us for today's Power Pep Talk, talking all things funding in the time of Corona. Mads, how is it going for the female founders that you deal with who are trying to raise capital right now?
Yeah, so a little, context. So for Vinetta, we do a lot of different programming to help female founders grow and scale their businesses and access capital resources. We don't invest in the companies directly, but we provide a tremendous amount of opportunity for founders to connect with investors, with one another, and other resources to help them with their companies. So a lot of what I'm doing now, obviously, is a lot of virtual. So meeting with founders virtually, we're hosting expert sessions, doing community wine nights, things like that. So what I have continued to see is, obviously, number one is the importance of actually community in all of this, and making sure that you're tapping into your network and continuing to expand your network. And when I say that from a funding lens, I mean, it's really important that you are seeking advice, mentorship from the same advisors, investors, mentors that you were talking to before coronavirus. You know, I have been with a number of founders that were in the process of fundraising, and then quarantine happened, and they either kept their same business, maybe had to do a pivot, for 6 months, or are actually completely transforming their business. And their question has consistently been, do I reach out to investors still? Like, where do I take this conversation now? It's really interesting because there's still capital out there that needs to be deployed, and some of it will be reallocated back to current portfolio companies. But investors are still investing in new, great startups. And so I think it's important as a founder to kind of maintain that grit and that hustle, and make sure you don't say, I'm all alone in this, and you continue to reach out to your resources and your community and your network, but you continue to seek out funding. That being said, I think the way capital is being distributed, particularly from a valuation perspective, will shift. I think diligence looks different because it's obviously virtual now, but that doesn't mean that VCs and angel investors aren't actively meeting companies and still actively writing checks.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, the importance of relationship building, even right now. There was a bunch of VCs on Twitter. A lot of them are very active on Twitter anyway, but they're particularly active right now, probably because they've got less meetings to go to, right? And one of them actually, I think it was Earnest Capital. I'll post it on our Instagram stories later today, the PepTalkHer account. But he was saying that 95% of his deal flow that comes through email is from white men. And he was actively asking women who are looking for funding from anything from 20 to 50K checks up to 7-figure deals to reach out to him. So in some ways, do you feel like it's an opportunity?
I mean, absolutely. So I think it's kind of twofold. One is certainly, which is something you talk about all the time, is things like the imposter syndrome. So don't let yourself saying, well, my company has shifted, they don't want to talk to me anymore. Stop you from continuing the conversations you had before. Similarly, different types of funding opportunities are now out there. There's obviously so many companies doing incredible grants right now that many founders can take advantage of, particularly focused on diverse founder communities. Salesforce is looking at doing a tremendous, $10,000 grants for companies. There's the Red Backpack grants. If Alice is doing a number of them. So it's really important actually to start utilizing those resources as well, to make sure that you see, again, take hold of the capital opportunities that are happening because and in response to coronavirus.
The Salesforce grant that was announced yesterday is really great for businesses. I think you have to have 2 to 50 employees, I think, and you need 250K plus turnover to apply for. So it's a really good one. And what about this concept of different sources of capital at the moment?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. So we are actually doing an expert panel session tomorrow talking about the stimulus, which is very timely because the second wave is going through right now. I think as a founder, it's really important actually to, as I mentioned, like all of these different opportunities for capital, that you still stay true to the fundamentals of what you're building and why, because not all sources of capital are right for you. So that's to say, the loan opportunities for these businesses may be really interesting. But based on what you're trying to build and your exit strategy, that may actually not be the best for you, versus continuing to talk to angel investors, continuing to talk to VCs. Likewise, some of these grants may be a really great way to extend your runway for 6 months until you're ready to have those conversations and pick back up if you're in the middle of pivoting your business and you want to hold off. So that's, I say all that to kind of go back to my first point, which is making sure you are seeking the right guidance and you're not letting all of these kind of like flash buys of here's money here, here's money there. I think it can get really overwhelming and seem like there's all this money flying around. Like, how do I take hold and benefit from this opportunity, especially as so many companies are, going through many different struggles and iterations. And I think taking the step back to say, what are my, fundamental goals? What is it that I am building? And how do I want to get to my ultimate exit, and whatever that may be? And I think if you let kind of the fads of capital run your business, it can be really dangerous. So I think if you go back to your kind of core group of advisors who have helped you along the way and say, is this something that I should capitalize on? Is this a really great grant or loan that actually applies to me and would be really useful? Maybe it's not, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it may be pivoting around your business model for a period of time so that you can continue to bring in revenue in a different way, and continue to run your business. And then once things transition back, I won't say to normal, but transition back to a place where there's more social interactions, and people are not in full quarantine, you may want to shift back to your original business idea. I'm seeing a lot of really exciting grit and perseverance in our founder community, which is really inspiring. And just incredibly important to highlight, I think, is that now is the time where that really comes to fruition. We actually had an investor panel, and one of the investors said, this time is allowing me to see something in a couple months that I normally take over a year to try to gather from picking and investing in a founder, right? Because you want to see, when the going gets really tough, how does the founder react? I think that's so important because as a founder, the continued dialogue, this is really isolating. This is very hard. It's like, times 10 right now, to think through like what am I going to make this period of time my defining moment as a founder? And using that to say, I'm going to showcase how I handle this type of situation and not see it as negative, but almost like a positive. Like, I can showcase how I pivot or how I build a business through this time and come out on top. And that to me is very powerful for anyone, but obviously for the investor community. So I thought that was really great advice and a different framework to say, it's actually a great way to kind of go through that diligence process in a different way.
Because they kind of get to see your true colors, right? And the way that you handle this situation. For those of you who don't know, Madelaine has amazing experience in VC, and she now works for the Vinetta project, which is an amazing organization that helps female founders. PepTalkHer is very proud to be a member, and we're actually going through a program right now sponsored by JP, which has been amazing for us in our business. For women who are thinking about starting a business, have started a business, have already raised capital, what's the best way for them to get involved in the Vinetta community right now?
Absolutely. So I'll do kind of twofold. So right now the virtual community is amazing. So we're doing kind of two key types of programs. The first is what we call our expert session. So that investor panel I mentioned, the one we're hosting tomorrow, you feel free to check out on our site. I'm sure Meggie will add it to the chat link, but it'll be a panel actually with JP Morgan, the SBA, and Graphite Financial, going through, kind of demystifying the stimulus. What are things that as a founder you should think about? So really focused in topic areas. And then we're also doing, which Meggie was a lovely host of, wine nights. So on Thursday evenings, bringing together a group of 8 to 10 founders and creating that community, which is what I spoke about earlier. Like, it's so important. You're not going to networking events, that you're still meeting new people. So we're bringing together that community of founders to make sure that they're still connecting. We had, 2 founders that were working on very different initiatives, but around youth in sports, literally on opposite ends of the US that would have never actually met at a Vinetta event, that are now collaborating on a project together from one of the wine nights. So that's an easy way to get involved to begin. For our programming, like the JP Morgan problem hacking cohort, our pitch and panel events, we host dinners. You can apply also through our site. We have an application process.
And that's just VinettaProject.com, is that right?
Yeah. VinettaProject.com. And you can sign up there, and then we select for the different events. It's a really amazing community. Again, as I'd mentioned, the goal is really to help female founders grow their businesses, give them access to that community and network, and the conversation around capital resources.
And you've been on the VC side for women and any founder at the moment who is trying to do what you say and use this as an opportunity. What's the best way to reach out to a VC? I feel like everyone has more time on their hands now, so actually it's probably a better time to get a meeting or a response to an email. What would you suggest is the best way?
Yeah, so this is interesting because I've actually gotten a lot of great input from what I call our venture committee. So I was actually on the finance and ops team, so I wasn't getting that inbound. So it's been really useful for me to see from our, what we call our venture committee, which are partners at VCs for Vinetta, how are the best ways for you to get that outreach? And it's a mix, some of them are like, bring on the cold outreach. I want those kinds of emails from a founder that gives me something short, sweet, concise, and catches my eye. Others are like, we'd love, an intro from someone else. So going back to your network and again, figuring out who are the right founders for me to spend time with, that are really going to advocate for me, that are even interested, right, would be interested in my business. I think it's definitely frustrating for investors if it's clear you just like BCC'd and then just, copy and pasted the same generic email across all of them. Like no one likes that. It just leaves kind of a bad taste in your mouth. You're much better off to spend some time saying like, why would I fit within your portfolio? And it means you've done a little research into kind of understanding why, what is their investment thesis? What are companies? It doesn't even be the same company as you, of course. They're not going to invest likely in you, but companies that align with what you're trying to build. Similarly, I always advocate for our founders, reach out to other founders that VC has invested in, that you're interested in talking to. Ask them, how has it been working with this VC, particularly during this time? What are kind of insights or guidance that you could give? I think founders are more than happy to kind of give you those insights because they may not have had them when they were going through that process. And they may end up helping kind of give you that introduction as well.
For anyone who is thinking about raising capital, who's just looking for support in their business right now, I highly, highly recommend the Vinetta Project and their community. Mads, remind us all your Instagram so people can follow and get involved.
Yep. So it's easy. So it's Madelaine Czufin, and I have a crazy last name. So there's only a few of us. So it's CZUFIN. And same thing on like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and feel free, follow me. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. And I do check my LinkedIn messages. So if you reach out, I will actually respond to you. Super excited to, connect with everyone who's sort of listened in, and give some thoughts. As I mentioned, feel free to check out our programming. We have one tomorrow you can still sign up for. And then, our wine nights are fantastic and a fun way to kind of get together and to kind of see what our community is all about.
So cool. And it's at the Vinetta Project on Instagram?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So highly recommended. If you're raising capital, if you might want to raise capital, if you've raised capital, get involved with the Vinetta Project and Madelaine and her team. They're so awesome. They've been very generous in opening their contact book to us at PepTalkHer, which we're very grateful for. So thank you for joining us on today's Power Pep Talk. This will be heading up on our IGTV page and on our YouTube channel, the PepTalkHer YouTube channel. If you've got more questions about raising capital, working with VCs, feel free to send us a DM at PepTalkHer. We'll send it on to Mads and get your response. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk soon.